Hey, I'm Andrei, and for the past year, as a fourth-year software engineering student at the University of Waikato, I've been working on a research and development honors project about smart home and assisted living voice control. To introduce, what is a smart home? This is a house which consists of interconnected smart household devices, which can be monitored or controlled remotely. And these have been becoming more accessible due to the technological advances which allow our everyday devices such as lights and thermostats to connect and communicate through the internet. And one way of controlling these smart devices is through voice commands, usually through integration with voice assistants you may be familiar with, such as Alexa, Siri, or Google Assistant. And from a consumer's perspective, voice control commands for these devices are a case-by-case situation depending on the brand or the type of device they might have. The commands may also be restricted where you have to remember the given commands they've provided, or you may have to speak in a specific structure for the commands to work. This relates to the knowledge gap that this research is trying to solve. Although there is a reasonable body of literature relating to smart home voice control over the years, there is very little to draw on directly relating on the vocabulary of the commands itself. Thus, the research aim is to collect data on how people may interact with smart home devices through their voice so we can understand how people would speak to the devices naturally, especially in a New Zealand context. The approach involves conducting a user study to collect data on which voice commands would participants use when presented a desired scenario. Scenarios were digitally created using a 3D model of houses and smart home devices. These were modified to display a visual representation of the initial status of the devices and the desired outcomes. A multi-screen compatible software application was developed which allowed the researcher to navigate between the scenarios and control what the user would see on their screens to simulate voice control. This allowed the participant to get a visual context display of the initial status of a device and the intended outcome, encouraging the spoken voice command to be a prompt for achieving the desired outcome. Now I'll show you an example of what a participant might see during one of these user studies. In this specific scenario, let's say you're reading a cooking book in your kitchen and it's a bit too dark for you to read. What voice command would you say to your smart home to solve this? Here a participant might say, brighten the lights, and as a result, the lights will brighten. The participants are asked multiple scenarios of these type of nature to establish the voice command vocabulary. On a separate window, the researcher is able to control and pick which scenarios to show, and control what the user can see as they say their commands. The user study provided a dataset of voice commands for a variety of smart home devices, creating a smart home command vocabulary, as intended. Another software application was used to help tag and analyze these voice commands. Using natural language processing, the commands can be tagged for the device, location, action, and modifier within the command. The commands were also automatically tagged for their part of speech and grammatical structure dependencies, providing further insight to the acquired vocabulary. To conclude, a smart home vocabulary can be established through performing a user study with the developed software utilizing 3D models to create smart home scenarios and simulating control. Further work can be done using AI to create a language model from the obtained vocabulary to be used for control of real devices with end users. With this project providing a natural voice command vocabulary, this could lead to better control of smart devices and utilizing the advantages they can bring regarding energy efficiency, cost effectiveness, and overall optimized use of our home appliances. Since this is a New Zealand-based vocabulary, the use of Te Reo Māori with voice commands would also be available. Voice control would also open up more capabilities for disabled people, visually impaired, and the elderly for a more accessible control of their devices at home. Thank you for listening, and feel free to contact me if you have any questions regarding the project.